Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back to the second tutorial of our exhibition design Blender module. During class this week, we sort of played around a little bit with just really quickly sketching out some exhibition displays for some of your work. You can see these here in the file. I'm going to turn all of these off for the moment, and what I want to do is I want to just start adding a little bit more detail, and hopefully you can follow along and start to take this from a kind of abstract model to something that's getting quite accurate, that would then be both good for your planning as well as kind of convincing someone to let you have an exhibition in their beautiful space. Okay, so I'm just going to press Z and go back into solid mode, and I want to start. This little toggle here, it's called, like, I think it's hiding extras or show overlays. And sometimes if I'm showing nice things in the viewport, I'll just turn the extras off and it looks a little bit cleaner. But I'll turn those back on because that's important, so we can see what we've selected and all sorts of other things. So I'll press Z, go back into solid mode. The first thing I want to make is this little part here, which from what I could see wasn't in the floor plan. If we take a look here, it's this wall here that we measured during class. So according to my measurements that I had written down here, it was 85 centimeters this way and 38 centimeters this way, and I guess we would have measured, now I can't remember, did we measure this distance here? I can't remember. But that's probably less important because it's not in the way, it's just a visual thing. But so let's start with the important bits, the 85 and the 35. So what I'm going to do is we're going to make this sort of object as a little measuring device, and then we're going to use that to sort of build it into our actual wall object here. So we'll make this again. I'm going to make a new cube. I'm going to press Shift right click, and that just places this thing here. It's called the 3D cursor, and it's got lots of uses, but in this case, when I Shift right click here and then I add an object by pressing Shift A, Mesh and Cube, it'll just add the cube where the 3D cursor is. It's just convenient, so it doesn't add it somewhere off my screen. So let's look at that 85 centimeters and 35 centimeters. So I'll leave it at 2 meters on the Z axis right now. I'm going to make it 35 centimeters on the Y, so 0.35, and 85 centimeters on the X, 0.85. Okay, I'll press G and Z and just lift it up. And now I want to kind of snap it into place here. So I'm just going to turn on my snapping, and I'll press G and Z and just move my mouse over to that edge till it snaps. And then I'll press G and Y and just use the same edge, so it's snapped both on both the height and the length. Now I'm just going to snap it. Let's check that photo again. Snap it into, I think I'm going to snap it along this edge. I think that's right, GX. I think we're going to be like that. I think it's in line. Let me just check my photos. So, okay, so the back of the shape goes along here. So it's in line with the inside of there. So we just have a look here, and we're just going to snap it to here. So that'll be, again, G, X, and I'm just going to snap it to that edge. Okay, so there's our kind of the wall sort of here, but we need to bring it up to the roof. So I'll press Tab, go into edit mode, make sure I'm in face select by pressing 3, and then I'll just GZ and snap that up to the roof. And then if we look at the photo once again, we can see that it kind of comes, looks like it comes like halfway across there to make this sort of large rebated area. So I'm just going to guess that a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is make an edge loop cut. Actually, no, I'll start building this into our architecture. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on this wall. I'll just go into edit mode. And if you can't see your menus here, just press T to bring up this one here, and N will reveal and hide that one. So I've got T, and I want this tool here, loop cut. and I want to, I have to zoom out a little bit because I think it automatically cuts by 50%. I'm just going to turn my snapping off for a moment. I'm going to press one cut, then I'll press G and X, and I want that cut to be where our sort of guideline object is. I can even use snapping here and then just go GX and snap it there. Then I'll do another cut here and press, whoops, yeah, so that's why we don't want snapping turned on. I clicked that and it snapped it right into the edge. Turn my snapping off, make my cut, turn my snapping back on, and then GY and just snap it in there. Okay, I'll turn my snapping off and I'll turn off my loop cut tool. And then I'm just going to go into wireframe mode. Am I? Let's have a look. Wireframe mode, edit mode, press 3 for face select, and yeah, I want to get these faces that are just in here, so I think it's going to be one, nope, it's going to be this one and that one, nope, lol, it's going to be these two. Basically they're the faces that are just inside here. Actually there's probably an even easier way to do this. I'm just going to quickly grab this object, hide it, go here, and I might just fill the gap. That might work even easier. So let's try that. So I'm just going to grab these, delete the faces, X to delete, and I'll just go into edge select here, I'll grab this edge, and I'll press E for extrude, X for the X-axis, and then turn my snapping on, GX so it's in line, turn the snapping off, shift select that face and just fill the hole that way. Okay, that's good, that's fine. And now I'm going to just, might even just grab this vertex, this one here, E and Z, I'm just going to extrude it down, and then turn my snapping back on, and I'm just going to snap it, GZ down in line there. Press 2 to be in edge select mode, and 1, 2, 3 edges select and fill that gap. Okay, so that's getting closer, and I'll probably just do the same little trick here. I'll extrude this edge, turn off my snapping, EX, and then turn on my snapping, GX, and just snap to that little guy there. Go into edge select and 1, 2, 3, fill that hole. Okay, that's kind of getting there. I'm just going to hide my floor as well. It's kind of getting in the way. Let me just, actually I'll show you another trick. If we click on our architecture and I press the backslash button, or like, you know, the same button as the question mark, it'll do what we call isolate select. It will select just one object we're looking at, which can be kind of helpful. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit by clicking on the area I'm working on, like one of these edges, and view frame selected. So my viewport is reset to that area, and I'm just going to sort of fill some of these in. Okay, so we're getting closer. Now, remember that wall came sort of halfway along here. So let's just do one more loop cut, and then I'll just grab one of these edges, turn off my snapping, E and X, bring it out, turn my snapping back on, GX to just get it in the right position, and then I'll just shift select both of those two edges, fill it, and I'll just go into face mode, and I'll delete these, X, delete faces, press 2 to go into edge select, fill that gap, F for fill. Okay, I think that's getting kind of close. Then I think just this area here has to become part of that wall. Okay, we can do that pretty quickly. So, all right, let's just start filling some things in. I'm just going to extrude out just these two vertexes here, turn off my snapping, EY, and turn on my snapping. I can turn the snapping on and off by pressing Shift Tab and just go GY, and just so that is in line there. Now I'll go into edge select, fill that. And then I'm actually going to go into face select and delete these faces. X delete, and that one too. X delete, and then edge select, and I'm just going to fill, F for fill, and what else? How else do these work? Okay, I'm just going to grab this edge, this vertex actually, and bring it up. E, Z, bring it up. Going to turn my snapping on. G, Z, snap it up to there. Now I've got that edge there here. I can just 1, 2, 3. Sorry, 1, 2, 3. Shift selecting, F for fill. 1, 2, 3. F for fill. I can't remember exactly. As I said in class, there's always things that we forget when we're out of the space. My guess is that this wall comes all the way up here. I don't actually have a photograph of it, but I'm pretty sure it does. So let's just fill that. So that's now kind of correct. And let's just go into vertex select mode by pressing 1, grab that vertex, turn off my snapping, EZ to extrude it up, turn my snapping on, GZ, and just hover over a vertex there to get that vertex to the correct height. Press 2, back to edge select, 1, 2, 3, fill, and press 3 to go to face select. We'll just delete these so they're not hanging around on the inside. And then 1, 2, 3 in edge select mode by pressing 2. Select these 3 edges, F for fill, and we'll fill this last gap as well. Okay, so that was a little bit of kind of playing around with extruding and filling and snapping. But now if I press the question mark button again and put it all back in, I think that's pretty much how that wall works. If I compare it to our photograph, I think that's basically what's going on there. Okay, there's a couple of other little things I want to do, partly just to teach you a little bit more 3D modeling, and also to make our model a little bit more accurate to the space. I want to make one of the doors. So I think they appear in a bunch of the photos. They're like this. Hopefully we won't go too crazy making them super detailed, but we can make it pretty good. They're these double doors. Okay, so let's look at our doorway. And the other thing is, another thing I don't have, we forgot to measure as well, is the height of the doorway. I'm going to use a person for reference and kind of guess. I'll put our model Francine here. Press G for grab, put Francine here. I'm going to guess the doorway comes up about this high. And in fact, I've already got an edge loop there that I used for something else. So let's just do that. I'm going to put in a loop cut here, and then I'll just press GZ and snap that up. And okay, that'll be our kind of door height. All right. So what we need to do, I'll just move Francine GY out of the way. I'll shift right click, put my 3D cursor in that doorway, and I'm going to hit Shift A, and I'm going to add another cube. And then I'm going to make this cube basically half the width of the door. So I'll look from the top, and first of all, I'll just scale in and then Shift and middle mouse button to pan across, and I'm just going to make it at the beginning the same width as the door. And I'm not going to snap this, I'm just going to do it by eye, because actually I want to have a tiny little gap. Like if you notice, everything in real life has tiny little gaps. And if we were going to be really accurate, actually, there's the frame of the door and then the door itself. Okay, so this is actually going to be, I guess, the frame of the door. So we'll do that first. Okay, so let's look at our dimensions here. The Y, that's going to be the thickness this way. So I think that's going to be pretty thin. I think that's probably going to be like 6 centimeters or something. So 0.06. And then I can press GY and put it sort of back. It's probably about halfway through. Another thing we didn't check. It's probably, maybe, gosh, I don't know. I'll put it something like that. And then the height, Well, that should be a bit easier to work out. We can just, first of all, I'm going to turn on my snapping. It's already on, and I'll press GZ, and I'll just hover over the top of my floor here. Then I'll go into edit mode, and I'm just going to press 3, and I'm going to snap it up to, if I go into wireframe, where we put this edge loop. So I'm just going to grab that face, and I'll press GZ, and I'll just hover over this line there, and that's going to be the height of our door. Okay, so I'll press Z, go back into solid mode, and I just want, because I just moved one face of the door, at the moment the middle of our cube is sort of in the middle of, well, it's a lot lower down because we did a lot of like sub-object transforming, and I'm just going to put this is like the origin point. If I rotate at the moment, it'll rotate around where Blender thinks the middle of the object is. I'm just going to go object, set origin, set origin, origin to geometry, and now that little dot is in the middle, and if I rotate it, it'll rotate from the middle, and that's just kind of making it function a little bit in a more intuitive way. And we're going to make this into our door frame. So I'll go into edit mode by pressing tab, and I'm going to get the loop cut button, turn off snapping, and I'll click to cut, but now I'm going to just open up this little set of options that comes up when we use the tool, and I'm just going to make that 2, and then I'll just go S, X, and I'll just drag these out. I'm doing this a little bit approximately here, and I'm going to do another cut, make it 2, and go SZ, and that's going to be our door frame. We can change the size and make it more exact later, but for now I think that's okay. Now we're going to do a trick and see if we can sort of make our doors out of what's already here. So I'm going to do one more loop cut here, and then go into just our face select, and we're going to go into face select mode, click on that face, delete it, that face, delete it, that face, delete it, and this one we're going to right click and go separate by selection. So that's basically made this one face a different object. Okay. Rightio. I'm going to click on our door frame. I'm going to press the question mark or backslash, and I'm just going to quickly fill in those missing edges after I separated everything. So I'll just grab here, edge select mode, shift to select multiple edges, and press fill. 1, 2, make sure we get the right ones. And I'm just sort of filling that back in. Okay. Okay, that's better. All right, so there's our door frame. That's okay for now. And let's look at the door. So first of all, let's just turn the door back into a full object. So I'll go into edit mode by pressing tab. I'll go into face select, click our one face, and I will go E and Y just to extrude it on the Y axis, and then I'll turn my snapping on, and I'll just go GY and make sure it's now the same width as the door. Later on, we might make everything just a tiny bit smaller so we have some nice little gaps, but for the moment I'll just leave it all the same size. We can scale it in a little bit. Okay, so how to make all of these window holes and so on. I'm going to do some very quick sort of Boolean modeling tricks here. We could do it like with edge cuts and filling gaps and stuff, but I want to show you a quicker way that I think is perfectly acceptable. So here's our door at the moment. What we're going to do is we can even duplicate this object. I can press Shift D and then just click. Actually, I'll just undo that. I'm going to turn my snapping off. Now grab my object, Shift D, left click, and I've now got a second object here. And I'll right click to make sure that I undo that move. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to scale it on the Y-axis to make it a bit thicker, scale it on the Z-axis, And we can see it's scaling a bit strangely because it also has its origin or its middle point kind of in a strange place. So we're just going to go object, set origin, origin to geometry. Now I want to look in an orthographic view, and what I want to do is I want to make these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little square windows. So I'll scale it on the Z. And then what we can do, we could duplicate it. You know, I could go Shift D, GX, and we could do it like that. But what I'm actually going to do is, first of all, I will apply its scale, Control A, apply scale. So all these numbers are back to 1. And I'm going to add an array modifier. So modifiers we haven't talked about yet. They're really great. You can do really interesting things with shapes just by taking a simple shape and adding these things called modifiers. We're going to add a modifier called array. And we can see it's kind of made a second one. And if I make this factor or this gap bigger, it'll move them apart. And if I make the count bigger, it'll make lots of them. So if I go back into my Y orthographic view, obviously I just want the count to be 2, but then I can add another array modifier by putting another one on here. And this time I'm going to take the factor on the X, turn that to 0, and put the factor on the Y to like, oh no, Z, sorry, not the Y, the Z to something like 1.6. Okay, and then I'll turn the count up one more. Okay, now we've got 6 of them. Now that 1.6 is too much. Let's try like 1.2. And let's put this 1.6 down to, yeah, that's getting closer. Now if I press G and Z, I can move all of them down. And basically I'm going to use these to cut the holes in the windows. So I think down a little bit more. Something like that. And maybe the windows themselves are a bit too, they need to be a little bit more square, something like that. That'll do for now. Okay, so I'll make them a little thicker SY, and we're going to add one more modifier, this time onto the door. And I might start labeling some of these objects as well. This one here, that cube, let's call that door. This one we will call window cutters. And on the door, we're going to add a modifier called a Boolean. And this is really handy. Boolean by default is set to difference. That's what we want. And we're going to use this eyedropper picker to select the window cutters. And now if I hide the window cutters, we'll see that this has not worked. Now, why would that be? Let me just have a look. What have we done wrong here? Okay. It should work on both fast and exact. I'm not sure if there's anything wrong with the geometry of this door. Let me just turn that modifier off and check. Looks okay to me. There's no holes in it. A Boolean operation often will fail if your object has holes in it or overlapping vertexes or anything like that. But this all looks perfectly fine. So until I can work out what I've done, let's just leave that there. I'll put it on fast, turn my Boolean cutter back on, or make it visible with this, the viewport visibility. And if I hide these cutters, we can see that now we've got our windows. The next thing we can do is we can make this little indented part here by just, we can duplicate our window cutters. If I press Shift D and left click, and I can just turn off the array. And if I look back down on my Y here, I can go GZ, GX, scale it up a bit, scale it on the X axis and the Y axis, and just kind of, I'm going to have it so that I suppose it's the same width. So I will go SX until it's the same width, and then GZ, and I'll pop it down here. So now, if I hide, I'm going to add one more Boolean cutter here, Boolean cutter to my door, and this time I'll select this other window cutter, and I'll hide both of the cutters, and I'll turn this Boolean cutter to fast. Okay, so we've got it's cutting, but instead of cutting all the way through, I wanted to just make that little dent. So now I'm just going to grab my this little object, and I'll just move it by pressing G and Y, and I'll just move it so it's not going all the way through. Now if I hide it, okay, we've got that little extra bit on the door. Now there's other ways we could model this. We could you know, do extrusions and not use the Boolean method, but I think this will be perfectly fine. It's good enough. The last thing I want to do is I want to just duplicate the door. Okay, and to duplicate this door across, I'm just going to call this one door original modifiers, and we'll keep this one in case we want to make any changes. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the door by pressing Shift D, and then on this duplicated one, I'll just call this door underscore duplicated. I'm going to apply the modifiers. So if I click on this one, this Boolean, and click apply, and the second one and click apply, now if I GX the door, you'll see that those holes have now been cut there permanently. And I'll just snap this to the side here, GX. Okay, then we've got our door. What we can then do is I'm going to hide the original one. I'm going to make one more copy, Shift D, and click, and I'll call this one door duplicated 2. Duplicated 2. And I'll hide the original modifiers one and all the original cutters. And now with both of these, I could just you know, just duplicate them over the rest of the scene when we're ready. There's a few more changes we might make to them. For example, I remember I was saying we might put that little small gap here, so I might grab both of them and just scale them down by S.99, just a tiny little bit of scaling, because if we look, it's an old building, there's little gaps everywhere. Okay, and now we've got our two doors. Okay, I'm just going to add very quickly a little shader to them, just so they're that pale green. We haven't added any shaders manually yet, but let's just do that so you know what it looks like. If I go into the shading tab here, and I'm just going to click on my door, turn my extras on. I think I'll just go into material preview rather than rendered mode. And I'm going to click new, and we'll see it'll make a material here. And I'm just going to grab a pale green color in the base color, just really simple. I'll click here, turn the saturation down a little bit, and that's probably fine for now. And I'll call this material door, and I can click on this one, grab the drop down, and also just find the one called door. And okay, so now we've got our pale green doors here, and it's starting to look a little bit more like AVA. We can make some more changes to them later, but I might just duplicate them across, so we're starting to get the look and feel of the gallery a little bit more. I'll turn off my snapping, I'll hit Shift D and then GX, and I'll just slide them into place. Here's hoping that the doors are all the same size. They might not be. We've also got our door frame. I forgot about that. I'm just going to delete those doors I made. I want to move them all together. And I want to make that door frame also that same green color. So I'll just go down here, grab door, and I'll name that door underscore frame. Okay, so there are my 3 doors. Oh, I think this one I needed to apply my booleans as well. Okay, so I've got our 2 doors in our door frame, and I'm just going to go into the top view and Shift D, GX, and it's going to place it just visually. I think is good enough for now. GX, and just move it back. It looks like we have a slight difference here, but that's okay. And I'll do the other one, Shift D, GX, and we'll bring our doors across. and that door frame's a little bigger. It could also be just me being a little inaccurate when I was looking at the doors from the floor plan. Okay, so let's look from the top again, and Shift D, and I'm going to move on to the other side and pop that into place there. Shift D, GX, and I'll press Shift and middle mouse to pan my view, zoom out a little bit, GX, and we'll get the final doorway. All right. Okay, all right. Okay, so that's starting to look better and better. It's getting a little bit closer to what the real space looks like. The next thing, of course, we could do, I'll just do it on one of the doors, but we could fill this gap in here. So if I just go into Face Select, grab these two, oh, I need to do one more edge cut here, press T to bring up my tools, grab my loop cut, cut it, turn on snapping, G, Z, and just make sure it's the same height. That's better. Now if I go to Face Select by pressing 3, select one face and the other, X, delete faces, Edge Select by pressing 2, turn off my snapping, and just fill these gaps. Get these ones first, it's easier to see. F for fill, okay. All right, so that's already looking a lot better. It's looking a lot more like the gallery. Okay, the final part of this tutorial, well actually maybe I'll split it into the next video. I'm going to introduce lighting. So I'm just going to finish off these doors and then I will bring lighting in the next video. So let's just finish off the doors because I don't want these videos to get too long. Okay, snapping, GZ, turn my snapping off, and Face Select, grab these, delete faces. I'm just going to go out of rendered into solid. It'll be a little bit easier on my computer. Edge Select, and grab these edges and fill the holes appropriately. So you can see that a lot of this, it's really starting with something simple and just progressively adding little bits more detail, and the space really starts to take shape. Here I am again, just deleting these faces, selecting my edges, Shift to select multiple edges, and completing the geometry around the doors. Okay, let's just get to this final door here. Oh, no, there's two more, sorry. So face mode by pressing 3, delete these two faces, F for fill, good, and the last one over here. Remember, if your viewport is sort of not zooming in the way you want it, just click on something where you want to be looking and go View, Frame Selected, and then Face Select, and just go back to work. Okay, delete my faces, and I'll just fill. Okay, now if I go press Z and go back into Material Preview, okay, we're starting to look even closer. All right, and as I mentioned, there's still more to come. We'll add lighting. We might start looking at where PowerPoints are, and we're also going to look at how to make your artworks. So that'll be coming up in some of the next videos. But I think that's enough for now. Okay, see you all soon. Bye-bye.